All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody, to MRPA Presents. My name is Stephanie Lang. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Resource Parent Association, and I will be kind of the tech assistant tonight for Mr. Sam Macer. I just wanted to go over a little bit of the housekeeping. If you haven't already noticed, we will be recording this, so please just, if you're asking a specific question, be mindful to leave names out because this will be posted on our website and we don't want to put any personal information out there. Uh, Please make sure that you sign in the chat at the beginning of the session and at the end of the session with your name and your county. If you are on with a second person, a spouse, make sure you put both of the names in the chat, and both people must be on screen the entirety of the session for both people to receive credit or get their training certificate. Certificates will be sent out in approximately 5 to 10 days. They'll be sent to the email you registered with. Now, we've had this problem. It does come from Certifier, so be sure to check your junk or spam email boxes for that. But give it, like I said, give it about 5 to 10 days. If you have an issue with it, you're welcome to email me back. Either tonight or tomorrow, I will send just an email out saying thank you for attending. So you'll have my information. We will also include a copy of the slideshow in that email. And I think that's pretty much for the housekeeping. So please let me introduce Sam Macer. So Sam, go ahead and take it away.
Hello, everybody. As Stephanie said, my name is Sam, and I got to tell you, there are a few slides that you're not going to see, maybe 3 or 4 because of technical difficulties, but we got a lot of information to share with you tonight, and bear with us with this tech stuff. All right, as I said, I'm Sam, and initially I was a kinship care provider, and if anybody can remember, or maybe Stephanie, you can remember, and I was a family of choice or a family by choice as a kinship care provider. Anybody remember that?
I think it's family by choice.
Okay, well, I was that. I was either of or by family of choice, and um, and then I became a foster parent after about 10 years, and it's been a great experience at this point when I remember back on it. And I got to tell you, being a kinship provider is not exactly what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be an easy process. My wife had two nieces, and their mother went to Germany for a 2 year tour. And when the young ladies got to my house, they had been to my house 1,000 times. You know, they had been with us on trips and Christmases and New Year's, the whole bit. And I got to tell you, it's not the same when they come live with you. It's really a situation where the children miss their mother. I mean, they understood that their mother was in the army and that sometimes she would have to go away. And when I received the girls, it was like, oh, this is like night and day. I heard those comments that oh, wait a minute, you're not my father, you can't tell me what to do. Oh my goodness, I've heard that a couple times before they got settled down. And oh, and my mother always lets us stay up late at night past 11 o'clock. How come you don't do that? And I'm thinking to myself, I know good and well your mother did not let you stay up past 11 o'clock on a school night. But kinship care can be challenging. It really can be challenging. Now, I got it for understand the resource parents also. I know you've got challenges also, and we'll talk about those a little bit later on. Now, very technically speaking, this could be an all-day training, and we only have 90 minutes. But the reality is that the content, we talk about trauma, we talk about team work, we talk about a couple important things, but the bottom line, could be an all-day training. So we're going to go over stuff in 90 minutes, but I really do suggest that when Stephanie sends you the PowerPoint, and you will send it later on, right, Stephanie?
Yes,
Anyway, she'll
absolutely. Yes, I was shaking my head. Yes, I'm sorry.
oh yeah, and remember, I can't see anybody.
That's
I
okay. Sorry
can't
about
see
that.
you or anybody, so we'll have to uh, go with that. But she'll send you the PowerPoint, and I really suggest that some of the references that we're going to give you, you know, we're not going to go into them deep, but the point is, you should go into them deep. It's really important that you understand some of the things that we're going to be doing. Now, let me go ahead and get started. Oh, good. At least it does that then. All right.
Yep.
Uh, Kinship and resource parents can create a trauma-informed education team to support the children and youth in their care and strengthen the home school connection. It's really important. I'm also saying to you guys, never work in isolation. It's really important that you sort of have a team in what you're going to do. And we'll talk about teaming a little bit later on. But working in isolation can be a traumatic experience sometimes. And our children really require, a team effort to make them comfortable. I learned that the hard way. We had a young lady that came to our house, and I guess it was about the end of the school year when we had our last parent teacher conference. And the teacher told me, she was a wonderful child and all this kind of, and she was going to have she's going to pass to the next grade. But I asked the teacher, what do you mean she's going to pass? She did not pass one test the whole year. She did not understand really her homework assignments. And I said, how does that work that this young lady can pass from one grade to the next grade and that be satisfactory? So in isolation, because I didn't have a team at that time, I didn't know any better, I said, no, this child cannot pass on. There's no way that you're going to be passing this child on. And one of the comments, or one of the, I guess, main comments she made to me was that, well, if she doesn't pass on next year, she's going to be one of the tallest people in the class. And I just couldn't believe it. You're going to pass a child because she's going to be taller than her classmates. Wow, it was really a sad situation because I knew good and well she did not understand the whole year. She had just gotten to me, and it was a really a bad situation where for the next few weeks I had to talk to the principal. I had to talk to the assistant director at the school, in the school system, and I explained to him, this is not fair to that child that you guys are going to pass her on, and she really doesn't know what's happening. That was my fight in isolation. But I'm telling you right now, you really need a team effort to make things happen at school. Having a team is a much better situation than trying to get things done by yourself. Okay, the why of this presentation, keep in mind that children in kinship and foster care are often several grades behind their own grade level. Also understand that kinship families often have educational challenges when relative children are placed in their homes. Like I said, they may have been with you for, every weekend, but the point is, the educational challenges that they have when maybe they come to your home, maybe they come into a new school, new friends, and everything. It's really a tough thing for the children to come into your home, and if you have the expectations that they're going to do well in school, you might want to lower those particular expectations because they have gone through some trauma, because that's why they're there in your home in the first place. They probably have gone through a lot of trauma. And for keep in mind that the Code of Maryland Regulations 0702-2508 states that resource parents, I'm talking about resource parents now, not kinship providers, but resource parents must participate in the child's educational process. Now, just keep that in mind, that it's really written that resource parents have to be a part. And sometimes the teachers complain that, wait a minute, um, the foster parent doesn't even show up at the school at all. So keep in mind that that's one of the expectations of being a foster parent, that you have to help the child. Now, let's consider the presentation considerations. Kinship and foster care providers will, one, consider the effects of ACEs and trauma on school performance. That's a big deal. These kids have gone through trauma, and sometimes their performance is going to be pretty low. Next, consider creating a trauma informed educational support team. And we'll definitely go over that a little bit later. So these are just the expectations of the training. Number three, consider managing effective parent-teacher conferences. Next, consider the appropriate caregiver leadership styles that you have. We'll talk about what style you are a little bit later on, but I have three of the main ones that we want to consider. And lastly, consider the tools and processes that help raise and sustain academic achievement at home and in school. Okay, Stephanie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So I want to tell everybody that's with us tonight. You technically speaking, every one of us has had some type of parent involvement when they were coming up in school. So this is something that everybody knows about. Either your parents didn't participate in the educational process, or perhaps they really were helicopter parents and participated. The point is, I don't want to do all the talking, guys. When you see something you want to, share, or think about something you want to share with me, go ahead. I don't know, just come off of mute or whatever. Don't do it in the chat because I can't see you at all. So let me know how you feeling about a certain point. It's really
So
important. I'm sorry, did Stephanie say
no,
something?
I was going to say, I did put it in the chat. You have two options. You can put it in the chat and I can ask Sam on your behalf, or you can use the raised hand feature
Okay,
and yourself off of mute. And Sam, I don't know if he can see you because he's on one screen. I can acknowledge you, but you can put it in
okay,
the chat. I will see it and I can read that back if that is your preference. But sometimes it's
okay.
easier just to come off of mute and raise your hand.
Yeah, yeah. And I like it when they do come off of mute because I can hear their voice, I can hear the inflection, I can hear their frustration. The point is, yeah, y'all, don't let me do all the talking. We want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Because like I said, every single one of us has had some experience with parent involvement. Like I said, maybe your parents weren't involved, maybe your parents were involved. So it makes a difference. And so please, share. I do want to hear what you got to say.
Sam, it might
Okay.
be a good idea. We could have done a poll, but maybe we'll just have people put it in the chat. If you're here specifically because you're a kinship relative or kinship parent, just type kinship in. If you're here as a resource parent, which is adoptive, guardianship, or foster, just put resource parent. But just so we can get an idea of what everyone is here for, if you can just take a
Okay.
second to put that in the chat, that way we can kind of get a general idea of what our audience is here.
Got you. Sounds like a good idea to me. So guys, feel free to move and groove and do the chat thing and say what you might have on your mind. Okay. Keep in mind that safety, permanency, and well-being are the foundational considerations for kinship and resource parent caregivers to help support academic achievement in school and at home. Because if you've got craziness going on in school, you're probably going to have that same instability at your house. So it's just important that school is a stable situation, and you want your home to be a stable situation. Now, kinship and resource caregivers have skills and values for educational support of the children and youth in their care. And I've listed a couple of skills that you might want to consider. Intentionality is the first one. This is something that you do on purpose when you're considering maybe a plan for your child. It's a conscious intent. Next is leadership and facilitation skills. Then being trauma informed, organizational skills, management skills, and patience. If you are lacking in any of those skills, you need to reconsider what you want to do to obtain those skills. The bottom line is that, of course, you're going to need patience. As a kinship care provider, you're going to get some challenges quite often, but also resource parents do too. I know I've had plenty of challenges along the way, but I've been lucky. I've had some great teenagers. Management skills, you're going to really need it if you want to be an effective in your parent involvement, in your parent engagement. Management skills are going to be really important. Organizational skills are also going to, and then being trauma informed. I mean, I know we get this training, when we first start, and they do offer it at Child Welfare Academy, um, information about trauma. But the point is, you want to be trauma informed. And leadership and facilitation skills, if you decide to create an educational team, you're going to be the leader of the team. So you want to have leadership and facilitation skills. And finally, intentionality is going to be really important to consider. Okay, research indicates when the caregivers encourage learning, set appropriate expectations, become involved in their child's learning at home and in school, develop an authentic home school connection, and establish a trauma informed educational team. When caregivers do those things, the children will earn higher grades, get higher test scores, have a better attendance, complete homework, participate in extracurricular activities, graduate from high school, hopefully, have better behavior in general, and show increased accountability. The bottom line is that when the caregivers do all those things, the children are really going to benefit from that effort. And honestly speaking, it's going to take a lot of effort. Going to take a lot of effort to get through to work with the children, and you're just going to have to be patient with them and just see what happens. Okay, research also shows twice as many elementary and secondary children in out-of-home placement repeat a grade compared to their peers. Kinship and foster parent caregivers can be the foundational support for increasing academic achievement. And finally, increasing the child's self esteem benefits the child's engagement with family members and school staff. For a minute, we're going to review adverse childhood experiences, that's ACEs, and traumas. Both of these have negative effects on academic achievement. So that's really important that we all learn about ACEs and about trauma. Okay, a little bit about ACEs, um, the adverse childhood experiences. ACEs are potentially traumatic events that may have occurred from birth to age 17. The child may have experienced violence, abuse, or neglect. They may have lived with parents who have a problem with alcohol or drugs, are mentally ill, or have served time in prison. The child may have witnessed the death in the home or community, or had a family member attempt or die by suicide. It can be pretty rough for a child. Those ACEs will stay with them for a while, and they're not permanent. But let's do this. Stephanie, are you able to bring up this video for me?
Yep, I have it ready. I'm going to take the screen back real quick.
Okay. You let me know when I got it back.
Okay. All right. Everyone should be able to see that. We had a little some technical difficulties, so the videos I'm going to have to do. I'm going to play this, and hopefully you guys can all hear it.
Hey, Stephanie, before you play that, can I just say this?
Sure.
Um, you're going to hear Dr. Harris mention this. High doses of toxic stress, in our childhood can really affect the way the brain works. And she makes one other important point. Positive social supports are a critical part of the healing process. And I did take away those two things, but let's see what she has to say, and you let me know when I'm back.
All right.
ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And these are stressful or traumatic experiences that happen in childhood that can increase the risk for significant health, mental health, and behavioral consequences later in life. They really come from a big landmark research study that was done by the CDC and Kaiser now more than 20 years ago, in which they asked adults about their history of 10 categories of adverse childhood experiences. And these include physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, physical or emotional neglect, or growing up in a household where a parent experienced mental illness, substance dependence, incarceration, where there was parental separation or divorce, or intimate partner violence. What they found was, number one, ACEs are super common. And number two, that there's this really significant effect. So there's a direct, what we call a dose response relationship between adverse childhood experiences and some of the most significant and serious health conditions that are facing Americans today. 2/3 of individuals had experienced at least one, and 1 in 8 folks had experienced 4 or more. When we talk about how many of us have experienced ACEs, what we see is that ACEs impact every community, I mean, every demographic group, but it impacts our vulnerable communities in a disproportionate level. The big surprise about the ACE study was that for someone with 4 more ACEs, their risk of heart disease was double, right? For stroke and cancer and liver disease and diabetes, even autoimmune disease. And a lot of these things are things that we didn't kind of traditionally or intuitively associate with childhood trauma. But now we can use this science to understand actually what happens in our brains and bodies when we're exposed to trauma or adversity, and especially in childhood. The term the toxic stress response actually refers to the prolonged activation of our body's stress response, the release of all those stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol and all of those things that go along with our stress response. And then also the ways in which that affects our bodies. Children are especially vulnerable to this repeated activation of the stress response because their brains and bodies are just developing. So high doses of adversity in children actually changes the way their brains develop. It changes the way their hormonal systems develop, their immune system develops, and even the way their DNA is read and transcribed. And those long-term changes are what we refer to as the toxic stress response. One of the things that's really challenging about ACEs is that they tend to repeat in families generation after generation. And I will say this as someone who has experienced my fair share of ACEs, understanding how that might be impacting me and being able to recognize that for me is really the key for being able to do things differently. When we understand what happens in our bodies with the toxic stress response, and we understand that it's that prolonged activation of our stress response, then step one is really understanding what are the things that help to regulate our stress response. And immediately at that point, we begin decreasing the harm that happened as a result of our past experiences. So things like mindfulness, right? Meditation, spending time in nature, mental health interventions, regular exercise, nutritional strategies, and my favorite, healthy relationships. All of these things are really scientifically demonstrated to help to regulate the biological stress response, and they improve our outcomes for those of us who have experienced ACEs. These nurturing relationships, they they feel good, which is good, of course, but they literally change our biology. When we have safe, stable, and nurturing relationships in our lives, it improves our neurologic functioning. It improves our hormonal regulation. It improves our immune functioning. And these social supports are critical part of healing. If we all understand our role in being a source of buffering care to a young person in need, that is truly transformative. ACEs Aware is a first in the nation effort to train our healthcare providers how to screen for adverse childhood experiences and how to respond in an evidence-based, trauma-informed way that helps to improve outcomes for children and adults. ACEs are not destiny. Even if someone has experienced significant ACEs, it doesn't mean that they are absolutely going to have these negative outcomes. Recognizing our ACEs requires us to recognize our vulnerability. And that can be really scary. But it also is the place where we get a chance to ask for what we need. I deeply believe that we can cut ACEs and toxic stress by half in one generation.
All right, Sam, I'm going to stop sharing. So it should be back to you. I see your screen if you want to change the page there.
Okay, let me give it a shot. Oh, there we go. We got it. We got it. We got it. Okay. Let me just see something here for a second. Hey, I'm able to see some people. Yep. Yeah, hey everybody. Okay. Now, traumatic stress in children in out-of-home care was found to create behavior problems and academic difficulties such as below average scores in reading, math and problem solving, reasoning, and listening comprehension. I mean, we say a lot about the trauma because until we understand or until we kind of, address the trauma that the child has, we might have a hard time creating an academic plan for the child in your home. So just keep in mind, it can be stressful for the child, but we also have to say, okay, we can help this child by doing X, Y, and Z. Let me see. Okay, hold on. Hold on, y'all. Stephanie,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna try to get.
All
Hold
right.
on. Let me see what we got. Okay. Now, trauma-informed parenting, we're getting ready to have a video on that. Stephanie's going to give us a video on that. But trauma-informed parenting, you know, it involves understanding how trauma can affect a child's ability to regulate emotions, build relationships, and cope with everyday challenges in school and at home. This approach prioritizes creating a safe, nurturing, and supportive environment where children can heal and build resilience. Let's see if we can bring up the next video, Stephanie, about trauma-informed parenting. Sorry,
right,
guys, I can't do that.
here we go.
You realize that trauma is real and exists, so that it's not like, oh, kids are resilient. They don't even remember anything from all those family fights or that disaster or whatever happens. They're just going to put it right out of their mind. Science says otherwise. It's prevalent. The majority of us in our communities have experienced traumatic events or experiences in one way or another. Doesn't mean we've all been impacted the same. Doesn't mean that everybody has developed post-traumatic stress syndrome. But it does mean that there's a commonality of these events, that many of us have been impacted by them. So therefore, we want to recognize that the impacts of that are going to be part and parcel of our everyday lives, in our parenting, in our homes, in our schools, in our workplaces, in our community. And then we want to think about, well, how do we respond then, given that we've realized that prevalence and that we're recognizing that there are impacts from it? How might we respond? And I put here for healing, for bringing things back into balance. I mean, it's really what, if you have a traumatic experience, and even if you just want to conceptualize this for a moment of thinking about an upsetting experience. And if you think about that, it's like, okay, your heart races a little bit, maybe your throat gets a little tight, your mouth gets a little dry, your jaw might be clenching, you might be clenched here, and you're tightening up. And meanwhile, you've got adrenaline and other kinds of chemicals kind of flowing through you that are equipping you to do that basic fight, flight, fight, flee, fight. What am I forgetting? Anyway, our sort of basic survival responses, right? Or what did I forget?
Freeze.
Freeze. Thank you. I froze.
And I've heard appease also is in there, and faint. There's all sorts of.
Right, exactly. But it's that basically it's like we're either going to fight, we're going to get out of here, or we're going to freeze and hide and make ourselves really small. So we all got that biology, right? And so our prefrontal cortex, all of our kind of human smarts help us to work with that and not be limited by that. But in the case of something really distressing, we are all going there, and we all have chemicals in our body, and they surge through there. So healing at a very minimum is processing those chemicals and getting them out of your system, whether it's by walking them out, whether it's by breathing, whether it's by drinking a lot of water and kind of cleansing your system, talking it through, that kind of venting kinds of things. That way, those experiences don't get stuck and those chemicals don't stay toxically circulating because their purpose is already expired. We want them to be moving on out. And then we want to really resist triggering people's trauma and resist re-traumatizing in that instant. And by this, I do not mean that we all have to walk on eggshells and help people avoid their experiences. We just want to be really mindful about how did we respond? What do we say? How do we structure a situation, even a physical environment?
All right, Sam, you should have the screen back.
Okie doke. Okay. Keep in mind now, being a trauma-informed kinship provider or resource parent should also include an understanding of the possibility of re-traumatization when considering developing a school plan for the child. The point is, I know we can't ask the teacher to do everything, but we might want to let her know if you understand a particular event that might re-traumatize the child while they're in school, that maybe let that teacher know. Especially if that stimuli happens, once a day or twice a day, you might want to let that teacher know that, wait a minute, this is what happened when it gets kind of re-traumatized, is re-traumatized. And it's certainly when the child is home, you want to try to understand what sets that child off. They might have some horrible memories about something that happened at their house, and if you can just stay away from that particular memory. It might help the child both at school and at home. Now, most of the times, references are given at the end of the PowerPoint. However, in this case, I want to make certain that you have an opportunity to review these issues or these presentations about trauma. These are specialized references that I hope you will, hey, look it up, see what they're talking about, and if you can't get past the trauma issue, you're going to have a hard time getting past raising academic achievement for your child. So keep in mind, look this trauma stuff up, see what it's all about, and keep it for a reference for the future.
Sam, I just wanted to note somebody put in the chat that 2 years post adoption, and they still send a note to the teacher about escalating behaviors and sadness with whatever tools they're working with at the moment.
Wow, that's really good. And honestly speaking, that's what's needed. Keep that teacher informed, or the next teacher, for the following year. The point is, yeah, that's a very good effort on your part to keep the momentum going and helping that child, and technically helping the school and the teacher too. So yeah, bravo to you. That's definitely a helpful situation. Okay, don't forget now, these are trauma things. Don't ignore them. Put them in your files. You can go back to them at any time and look at it, because I guarantee you, most of our children have gone through some form of trauma, and we really need the training, the information, um, to help the child out. So please keep that in mind. It's all about helping the child. Okay, trauma-informed educational support team. Now, after you learn all about trauma, or just kind of reintroduce yourself to the concept, if you decide to create an educational support team, you want to kind of inform the members of that team what trauma is all about and how we can help the child. Now, trauma-informed education teaming supports effective parent involvement, student buy-in, and academic achievement. And then that middle one, student buy-in, that's really important, because once that child kind of knows that, wait a minute, you as a foster parent or a kinship care provider or an adopted parent, once that child knows that somebody's watching out for them, it's definitely a better situation. It's definitely a better situation. Okay, trauma-informed education team. Teaming involves the identification of family and community supports and understanding the effects of trauma to help stabilize the child at home and in school. Once again, I'm just saying, hey, understand the concepts of trauma, and that'll be half of your battle that you have to deal with. Okay. Kinship caregivers and resource parents can do these things. They can choose the role of being a leader, team builder, and facilitator of the proposed educational team to support the child's positive educational outcomes. And that's where these values or the skills came up from one of the first slides. You need, honestly, to be a leader, a team builder, and a facilitator. That might be tough, because you might not have to do that if you're just getting your little nieces or nephews into your homes, and you thought that taking care of children was over with, but they came to your home. The point is, those leadership skills are really essential. Being a leader, a team builder, and a facilitator. And when you have a team, not all members of your team are going to be, on target. So you're going to have to use your leadership skills to make certain that that things go right. Now, kinship caregivers and resource parents can also become trauma informed, like we've been saying for the last few slides, understand how trauma can affect the learning process, behavior, and share the information with the education team members, because they might not really know. They might only know that, wait a minute, little Johnny came to grandma's house, a few months ago or a few weeks ago or whatever, and they might not really understand the concept of trauma. They might not even know why that child came to your home. So they're really going to say, wait a minute, I'm not getting this trauma thing, but it's going to be up to you to say, okay, this is what trauma is all about. This is how this is affecting our child. So you just keep in mind that you want to be a leader in understanding, you know, being trauma informed, and you want to share that. Now, finally, use teaming and caregiver support groups to share parent involvement ideas, challenges, and solutions in the educational process. Uh, let me just say this. Support groups. They can be your local PTA, your local foster parent association, your local PTO. The bottom line is that get with peers and hear what they have to say about the challenges of providing care for a young person in your home, be it a kinship situation or a foster parent situation. It is really, really helpful if you talk to other people that have the same challenges. I know when my wife and I, we only took care of teenagers after a few years, and it was really a good situation when we met with other parents who provided care for teens. It was a really, really a big deal. I mean, the agency really supported us. I mean, they gave us great meals when we came down to meet each other. But honestly speaking, support groups are really what is needed. And one bottom line, really quick here, is that this type of training, if you guys participate, can really be a form of a support group, because the sharing of your experiences, your ideas, sharing your challenges, and sharing your solutions is what support groups are all about. So technically, while we only have 90 minutes today, technically you can be part of a support group, and like I say, feel free to chime in, do the chat thing if you want to, but it's you that are making things work for other people, not me. I'm just got some information that I want to share with you. But honestly speaking, technically, this is like a support group. And please, feel free to, like I said, to chime in anytime you want. You don't have to wait till the end. You can just, say what you got to say. Now, possible education team members could include the child, of course. The child should be on the team. The kinship caregiver or resource parent should be on the team. The biological parents, when appropriate. And I only say that because there are instances where you or the child hasn't seen that parent in a long time. So, when appropriate, I would definitely include the biological parents. The teachers, of course, they're members of the team. And if you are a formal kinship provider, or let's just say this, maybe if you are informal kinship provider, you won't have a caseworker because you're not really in the system. But if there's a caseworker available and you're a formal kinship care provider or resource parent, you use your caseworker part in this thing. They need to understand, they need to know what the child's going through, and perhaps they have some resources within your agency to help the child in school. So please include your caseworker. Extended family members when appropriate. If Uncle Joe wants to be part of the process, go ahead, let him be part of the process. I mean, they might not need to know the child as much as you do, but the reality is, if extended family members, choose to participate, I would certainly, invite them to do so. And finally, another important member of the team, a special in-school advocate. Let's talk about that person for a second. the kinship caregivers or resource parents can suggest that a special support person from the school staff be identified as part of the child's educational team. This is really important. If that child, let's just go on with the next one. If the child has a crisis at school, he or she will have permission to contact the special support person for assistance. This promotes real-time safety and stabilization at school. And finally, the relationship will have to be prearranged with the school staff, the child, and the caregiver. This special support person could be a real-time safety net for the child. For instance, the child goes to lunch and goes to the cafeteria. If he's being bullied, he or she is being bullied, if there is a person at the school that that child could go to for support, that really helps. That helps with, keeping them safe. It might be imaginary, I don't know. But the point is, on your team, if you decide to create a team, have that special person from the school be on your team. That way, you don't have to run up there every day for if there's a issue of bullying or whatever the case might be. That special support person on the school staff can be there to help that child. That's really, really important. And I got to tell you, the young lady that I had in my home, she was being bullied. And it wasn't until we identified that special support person that she became, had less anxiety. She knew she could go to somebody for help if she was scared, and sometimes she was, and it really did work out. Now, I understand that all of us, we might not have a special support person, at the school, but it does actually work for that child. It really does. So you might want to consider that if you create an education team.
Sam, there was a question in the chat. They said their school system did not let them without having an IEP in place. They refused to help when I reached out. How do I get something like that in this instance?
Wow, wow. So I'm not sure. Did the person talk to the principal or just the administrators? Maybe secondary. Was the principal involved in that? Because the only way that I got a special support person was through my principal. I mean, they've got a lot of power, and some of the okay, I'm gonna say some of the teachers and some of the counselors just didn't have that umph to make it happen. It was the principal that made that happen, and the the principal, my principal anyway, knew that I had foster children in my home. It was no secret. I mean, they understand who is related to who and things like that. And I'm guessing because I was committed to that child's education that that principal said, okay, let's name. And I got to tell you, this guy was and I guess they call him the guy was the janitor. They might have another name nowadays, but the guy was the janitor. He was well known, and my child really and truly liked him. But no, it was the principal that made that happen. It was the principal.
Sam, Catherine has her hand up. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hi, I hope you guys can hear me. I'm currently driving home, but that was my question. And I actually did have several conversations with the vice principal and several of the administrators, and they all sort of like put it back on me. And once we got the IEP in place at the end of the school year, there wasn't really anything that they could help. There were teachers that were not like assigned counselors or anything like that, that did help, but they weren't assigned. So sometimes they would be told, you cannot help this child because she's not under your roster or something similar like that. And so those teachers are the ones that my child was uh, so I just want to know, like, if I need to like go to like a school board, or like what do I need to do in like that instant?
Yeah, my reality was I didn't have to go quite that high to the school board because that's a whole another level of engagement. But mainly what I did was put every single communication, I put it in an email, and that sort of documented my effort to help the child. Now, I don't know whether you've had you had a situation where there was a caseworker involved. Did you have any caseworkers involved?
Yeah, I do have a caseworker, and I've also asked them several times to reach out to the school to help me. I'm very new to all of this. So there was something called like an FTDM meeting, I guess, if anybody is familiar with that. I
Yeah.
really am, okay. Where I kind of expressed my frustration with the state, with the school system, and they just kind of said, okay, we'll, see what we can do. And then that was sort of it. It's like, even me trying to remind them or something, is like, they don't do what they say that they're going to do, and
Yeah.
it's back on me. So like, if it's the right thing to do to go up toward like higher than the vice principal or the principal, like, I don't know if that's what I need to be doing to get that
Yeah, and
person
yeah, if
assigned to
you
my child.
absolutely, if you've made those efforts that you just talked about, taking it higher than is appropriate because you've made all the outreach and engagements. Um, but I would hope, and I don't know, anything about your caseworker. I would hope that she would be co-signing on to your request because you know I have honestly seen cases where everybody I'm gonna put it nicely. Did not help out. I'll put it that way. And it wasn't until, and then I've already told you about the little girl that I, wanted to not pass. I had to go to the assistant superintendent to make that happen. I had all my documentation in order. For instance, I had the test that she failed for. The point is, I had all um, my little documentation, like I said, in order. And then I had to pass all that documentation on to, um, to the assistant superintendent. And honestly speaking, that was the only way I got it done because I had it in writing and I had my caseworker help me and it passed on like that. But at this point, to me, no matter what, it should go on to the next level. It really should go on to the next level for you. And please have your stuff in writing and tell them your concerns. Now, if it became an academic concern, that's one thing. But if it ever became a safety concern, that's another thing. So the point is you gotta make somebody listen that's higher than the principal if he's not helping you for real. Yeah. So I would definitely take it to the next step with all my ducks in order, as I guess was what they say. But yeah, and it's frustrating that you have to do that. It really is frustrating that you have to go through and beg your way up the line. And it's just something that the caseworker should definitely be involved in it. And then maybe even her supervisor, his or her supervisor might have to be involved also. But I'm sorry you're going through that. I've been through it, and it's a horrible experience when you see nothing being done and you
Yeah.
say, the heck with this, I got to go to the next step.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. Then that's what I will be doing. And unfortunately, it was both safety and educational concern. So uh,
Oh, really?
I yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's ninth grade was pretty bad.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. And this is a very helpful course. So I appreciate everybody taking notes.
yeah. And when you can, use that word safety whenever you can, because that rings a bell for everybody. They don't want to ignore that word when it's brought up by you or the caseworker. But yeah, please use the word safety whenever you can. Yeah. Good luck with all that. That's really a tough thing. Like I said, I've been through it. It's heartbreaking when you see the professionals not doing what they should be doing. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Good luck with that one. Okay. Biological parents benefit from being on the team. You know, supports family connection when the biological parents are on a team. Uh, there's potential in reunification because that's our priority to make the child or the family have a good reunification process, and positive in school and home behavior. The point is, when the biological parents are involved, it can be a good thing. It really can be a good thing. The next thing is child accountability to the parents, the team, and the educational process increases. When that biological parent is involved, you got to remember the children just love their parents, and they want to, I guess, impress them or whatever. But there's a measure of child accountability to the parents and the team and the educational process when that parent is involved. And even if it's, they can't be involved because they're every day or every week because they're incarcerated, still there's that form of communication with the letter writing, and then sometimes you can have the email process. But when that parent is involved, it's going to be very helpful to the team. Now, it helps strengthen the caregiver and the parent working relationship. When my daughters, or when my young people that came to my home, their mother was incarcerated, and it was just letter writing. It was just letter writing. It was amazing that they can't. Well, not amazing, but they really cared about the relationship with their mother, and that sort of held them accountable. I really enjoyed that. Now, parents generally have the right to make major educational decisions for their children. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Um, if their rights have not been terminated, they still have the rights to make those educational decisions. So just it can be tough, but most of the times, no matter whether the parents in jail, incarcerated, or just haven't seen the child, they want the best for the child. They really do. So I would definitely get them on my team if possible. And it's like I said, it can be a tough thing. Okay, what does it mean to be trauma informed caregiver and team? Um, it benefits the benefits of a trauma-informed educational team. The child understands they are not alone in the educational process. And that's really important. A child can try to fake you out or whatever the case might be. But the point is, when there's a team involved, that child understands they are not alone in the process, and they feel that. The child learns some degree of accountability to the team. The child It promotes stability and well-being at school and at home. It's just a better situation when that connection, that team affects school and home. Now, the team is trauma informed, has shared responsibilities, and a common goal to help raise and sustain academic achievement. Everybody on that team should be responsible and willing to help that child. And the team seeks to avoid, like I said, re-traumatization. And you, as a care provider, might want to share with them what re-traumatizes the child. Re-traumatization is usually unintentional. Kinship caregivers often have knowledge of the children in their care. So when possible, triggers should be identified, if they can be identified, and avoided both in school and at home. That those triggers are really important. Re-traumatization is often triggered by stimuli that resemble or are associated with the original trauma. If a child sees her parent being beat by the other parent, that's going to be a problem. That's really going to be a problem. And if they see that on TV, that can definitely re-trigger them. Team norms. If you have a team, the kinship care provider or resource parent as the family education leader can encourage the team to establish a written group agreement about how the team members will respect the child's confidentiality, respectfully engage each other, and provide a safe space for two-way communication. The point is, have some type of an agreement if you have a team. You don't want people running off half-cocked and doing their own thing. It's just, oh boy. Okay. How do you know it's a team? There's a shared focus with goals. There's participation um, of the members of the team. It's open to sharing. The team is open to sharing. Like you as a leader should be sharing information about what's going on in school and triggering and that type of thing. And your team works through the conflict. Everybody's not going to agree on everything, but you want your team to work through the conflict and be productive.
7:35 p.m.
Oh, that means I'm almost up. So, what makes a team challenging? Resistance to sharing. So there's some relatives who might say, "Well, I really don't want to share that information," and I can understand if it's confidential, if it's a confidential thing. But in general, you want to go ahead and share what you know about the child in a way that can help that child. Now, another issue is disengaged members. Maybe some members of the team are really not participating. And so you're really going to have a challenge with that thing. Now, not understanding the team process, that's another challenge that you're going to have for your team. Sometimes logistics, sometimes maybe they live, in another county and they're not going to participate. But really, that's no excuse. You got the email thing and the telephone calls, but anyway, personal bias. Your team members might have a personal bias against the care provider, whether it's a resource parent or it's a kinship provider. Uncle Joe might not like that you have the child. If it's a resource or foster parent situation, the same thing does apply. Not all relatives like all foster parents, and it just happens that way. And you're going to have to be aware about it. Now, you want to consider kinship and resource parent caregivers may have different leadership styles, and this is important because every child is different. Leadership styles. Let's talk about that for a minute. Kinship and resource parents can use the appropriate leadership style when supporting children in their care. Leadership styles are situational. Leadership styles are not a one size fit all thing. And finally, children's personalities vary, and a particular leadership style may produce different home school results. So keep it in mind, every child is different, and you determine what type of style you're going to be using. Leadership styles that I'm going to talk about here really quickly is the authoritative, the democratic, and the hands-off. Authoritative leadership style, the care provider makes the decisions. They're the boss, It's my way or the highway or whatever. The care provider tells the students what to do. The care provider limits discussion. There's no teamwork involved. There's little inclusion and discussion. It's my way or the highway, a very dictatorial way of being. And honestly speaking, fortunately, I haven't really seen a lot of foster parents like that. But yeah, it does happen every once in a while. The democratic leadership style. The caregiver presents alternatives. It involves the child and the youth in the planning process. And the caregiver listens carefully to what the child has to say. Even if the child's in kindergarten, the caregiver says, okay, let me listen to what's happening here. And then the caregiver promotes teamwork and inclusiveness, which is really, really important. And this is the type of leadership style I used when caring for my kids. And I tried to make it flow over into the relationship with the biological parents. But this particular style worked for me. and the teenagers that I work with. And you've got the hands-off leadership style. The student defines his or her parameters for short-term academic success. The caregiver is there for support, though. Caregivers give little direction, but provides opportunities for decision making and resources for the child. Decision making is really important. Even if the child is young, what do you want to have for dinner tonight, or whatever the case? What kind of dessert would you like next? Decision making starts really, really early. And finally, caregivers offer guidance upon request with the support of the educational team. Now, here are some dining room table suggestions and interventions to support learning. Now, these things were shared by caregivers, teachers, older youth in care, former foster youth, and caseworkers. These are some of the ideas, and they're great ideas that I've received from all the individuals I just mentioned. Virtual parent-teacher conferences. Now, virtual conferences are more convenient for parents and teachers. The teacher is aware of which family they will meet with. The teacher can provide details of the child's records and performance. And finally, the child and parents will be better prepared with these virtual parent-teacher conferences. Being prepared is really an important important point. When my wife and I went up to the high school, we went into the classroom, and the teacher was sitting there knitting. I couldn't believe he was just sitting there knitting, and we didn't force his attention, but we had to say, okay, we want to talk about our child, and he put down his knitting gear and started working with us. It can be a challenge sometimes, but virtual parent-teacher conferences are a good thing that can happen. Now, effective and ineffective parent-teacher conferences. Please listen to this. This is more information from teachers and parents. Effective parent-teacher conferences. The child or youth is present during the conference. Even if it's in kindergarten. I was shocked when I went up to the school, and the child was in kindergarten, and the teacher asked, could the child be there for the conference, And that was a pretty good thing. I used that concept all the way through school. Pre-conference questions are given to the teacher based on current performance outcomes. The point is, if you know your child is failing every test, you might want to give the teachers questions about the particular performance that's going on. Next, the caregiver has knowledge of course expectations. Now, we're talking about effective parent-teacher conferences now. You should know what's going on if your child is in a math. You should kind of know, not that you have to teach the child, but you want to know what that child is going to be learning in the next couple of weeks. Now, also in effective parent-teacher conferences, identify areas in need of improvement based on the data and observation of the child for the last month or so. And finally, create an improvement plan based on the conference. Now, you might not be able to, create a plan right there while you're at the conference, but at some point, maybe a week later, you want to have a communication that develops a plan based on the conference. And that's really important. You don't want to have you got to have a plan. That's what I'm saying. You need to have some type of a plan for that child. Now, ineffective parent-teacher conferences got to, be cognizant of that. When it's ineffective, no prior conference questions are provided to the teacher concerning performance. In other words, before you go, make certain that you have questions to the teacher relating to the child. Try to be as specific as possible, but that's called an ineffective parent-teacher conference. When you don't ask the question, you don't present the questions ahead of time to the teacher. You want to give them time to answer the questions effectively. The caregiver, this is ineffective, has little or no knowledge of the teacher. I went to the office one day, and the parent was coming up to pick up the child. And of course, the secretary said, "Well, what's the teacher's name?" And that guy didn't know the teacher's name. I'm thinking, good grief. I mean, how involved are you that you don't know the teacher's name? I mean, that's kind of a weird situation for me. Finally, the caregiver has little knowledge of grade level expectations for the year. This is the ineffective conference. Understand that your child is going to learn A, B, and C for the entire year, and so you can support that effort. But to go there and not know anything about what your child is going to be learning, that's pretty bad. And finally, in effective parent-teacher conferences, the student is not present and involved in the conference. The child needs to be involved. The child needs to be held accountable in a nice way, but the child needs to understand that, hey, they're involved in the process and it works. Now, parent-teacher conference, the teacher's perspective, we're not going to go over this because for technical reasons, this is not working for us. But and when you get your PowerPoint, just go ahead and take a look at some of the teacher perspectives of the parent-teacher conference. This is about what the teachers can do for the family. So I would strongly suggest that you go ahead and look at what the teachers can do. Now, the parent perspective of the parent-teacher conferences. I think we have this, Stephanie.
We do. Did you want me to play it? It is a 10.5-minute clip, and we only have about 15 minutes left. Did you want to play thing?
No, 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 no. Take a look at it.
Okay. All right. We'll
Yeah,
pass on that one.
yeah.
Then.
Let's do that. But the point is, remember the parent-teacher conference tips that this video shares is really enlightening. So you might want to go ahead and look it up on YouTube and make certain that you kind of know what to expect from the parent-teacher conferences. Oh, how did that come up?
That's on your side. You're playing it, but there's no
Oh my
sound.
God! No, I don't want it.
Yeah.
No. Thank you. I can't believe it played. But anyway, now these are suggestions from a school teacher. Passive extended learning. Use summer vacation and holidays for limited reviews. Also, the teacher suggests use weekends for short reviews in weak areas. This is from Baltimore City foster parent. Special tools and activities, video and audio recordings. This was creative. I did like this. Record the child when reading aloud. Get your tape recorder out or your video camera and record the child when reading aloud. Review the video or audio recordings to promote the child's self-confidence, reading skills, and public speaking skills. Believe me, when they see themselves on camera, it's a good thing. We use that quite a bit at my home. And they did get their confidence level up, the self-esteem level was better. So yeah, please consider this. I like that idea. Okay, of course, use flashcards for all grade levels and all academic subjects. Really, really important. Those flashcards do work. They've been around forever, but yeah, go ahead and use those flashcards. Now, participation in school-sponsored program. The bottom line to this is that if you have a child in your home, make sure they're allowed to participate in all the programs that the school has to offer. You don't want to say, oh, little Jimmy, you can't go and participate after school because I've got to work to a certain time. And now try your best to get that child into those programs. Now, this is from PTA office, special tools and activities. Write newspaper article summaries to develop writing skills. The student reads the article aloud and builds confidence and brings an awareness of current events. So use the newspapers and it's I guess the Google online stuff there. But the point is, help develop that child's reading skills by asking them to do a summary of the article they read, and it really, really builds their confidence. Letter to the teacher. This individual foster parent said, I write a letter to the teachers. Caregivers introduce themselves to the teachers. They offer to be supportive in the educational, as an educational partner. They present expectations for student academics and behaviors. Let them know you expect some of the things from the student, and that you want to be a real partner. And also ask for a date to schedule a conference. Make sure you get that done. Days absent report. Sometimes our children are out of school for court, medical appointments, blah, blah, blah. No, so request a definitive note identifying the daily objectives that were missed, the classwork that was missed, and the homework that is due. Really important. Cover your butt. Make sure you hold that teacher accountable for giving you that information. I'm not going to read all these 10 tips, but the point is these are 10 tips for supporting kinship for foster children's education. You can read those, but the point is, you've got a lot to do, and these will help you get through it. And finally, look, the number one suggestion from kindergarten to college is Khan Academy. I mean, it really, really gets you through the tough spots. The Khan Academy, helps students learn new skills that can prepare them to succeed in many subjects. The students can learn from home. They don't have to worry about being in school. It's a self-paced situation, and hundreds of lessons are available. And really quick, Stephanie, can you have a raise of hands of anybody who's heard of the Khan Academy? Anybody
From
heard
the
of
one
that?
put on video, there was 2 or 3 from the video.
Okay.
On
Yeah,
video.
you really got to get that Khan Academy thing going in your home, and it'll help. Now, just a review: kinship, caregivers, and resource parents can create a trauma-informed educational team. That's really important. Think about doing this as a team with your with your caseworker, or if you're in a kinship situation with your aunts and uncles. The point is, you can create a team. Use support groups to share educational challenges and solutions such as the PTA, PTO, kinship, and resource parent groups. It's really good when you can talk to other people with the same challenges that you have. Finally, research indicates that kinship caregivers and resource parents can be the foundational support to raise and support academic achievement. And the last part of the review is parent-teacher conferences are an effective support tool. Kinship caregivers and resource parents, leadership styles are situational and not a one-size-fits-all. And finally, homegrown dining room interventions that we just went over are really helpful. Okay, the references, all the references are here that I use today. And yeah, some of them are academic, wordy stuff. But the point is, there's a lot of research that says our children need help, and you can use some of these references to help yourself, especially the National Child Traumatic Stress Network and the National Training Development Curriculum, NTDC. They are 2 of the very important things that we can use to help our children. More references. Oh, and please, in the back of this video now, I left you the video links that you can look through and go to the videos that will really be a help to you. Okie dokie. So I appreciate the opportunity to share this information. And the reality is that you can contact Stephanie at any time, or you can contact me. And there's my email address. But the point is, we want to help our children as much as possible, and we want to help you to help our children as much as possible. All right, Stephanie, I think that's it for me.
All right, I'm gonna actually turn off the recording here.